Hello, and welcome to Starting 11's press conference. I'm Lloyd and thank you so much for joining me as we take a pass at some of the week's biggest soccer stories, starting with Sir Alex Ferguson's surgery. Manchester United's former manager and one of the godfathers of modern football, Sir Alex Ferguson, underwent surgery earlier this week after collapsing in his home due to a brain hemorrhage. The 76-year-old was initially placed in intensive care following the procedure, but has since been downgraded to an inpatient. Thankfully, he appears to be on the mend, but his emergency medical procedure did draw support from players, fans and clubs around the world, including former United stars from Michael Carrick all the way to Cristiano Ronaldo. Even Manchester City fans held up signs wishing him well, and Arsene Wenger took the first few words of his farewell speech to send some good vibes to his friend. And being just as big of a part of his life as his longtime nemesis at Arsenal, I of course would also like to wish him the speediest of recoveries. Still, at least he was unconscious while Manchester City were lifting the trophy on Sunday. Despite crushing the league all season long and steamrolling their way to a title, Manchester City still could not find a way past the mighty Huddersfield on the day of their Premier League coronation. How nice it was of them to share some of those points to a club in need. It was also club legend Yaya Touré's final game at the Etihad as his contract expires in the summer. His next destination is still a mystery, but he said that he wants to stay in the Premier League for a few more years. However, you've got to imagine that there are going to be even more lucrative offers on the table from places like China, where he could go, not do a lot of running, and make an awful lot of money. And doesn't that sound like something he'd be into? As a neutral though, it is genuinely worth remembering the impact that Yaya has had since he arrived at that club. He hasn't featured much under Guardiola, but he's made 316 appearances for the side since he arrived in 2010 from Barcelona, and has helped to shepherd in the new era of success that City now finds itself in. He even scored the goal to bring the club its first major trophy in 35 years in the FA Cup final against Stoke. He should also be remembered for his good sense of humour, which he put on display for the club one last time when discussing that transfer from Barca to Man City. He said that it had been a gamble, and that when he'd been at clubs like Monaco, Olympiacos and Barcelona, he'd gone to their club museums and seen all of the former players. He said that he went and did the same thing at City, but he hadn't recognised any of them. Well, now he's the recognisable one for an entire generation of fans. What a trailblazer. Fighting relegation along with Huddersfield at the opposite end of the table, Southampton looked like they may have just punched their ticket to stay in the Premier League after beating Swansea midweek. They were understandably in a jovial mood, but they took one last shot at the Welsh club on their way out of town. Their team hotel they'd been booked in for a quote important business meeting apparently cancelled on them 24 hours before they were due to arrive, so they left it a 1-star review on TripAdvisor, saying that while their trip hadn't been soured as a result, they recommended staying in the other hotel they ended up going to. Maybe next time the Saints could just try dancing on Swansea's grave. Now, he's not dying, but his time at Arsenal is pretty much over. Arsene Wenger won't be going out quite as triumphantly as he would have hoped from Arsenal after his side failed to get past Atletico Madrid to reach the Europa League quarter-finals. It was a poor display by Arsenal, especially considering so many of their players have been rested ahead of the game, but Atletico are next level at stifling teams, and Arsenal often don't need much help being stifled. More frustrating still was the result they turned in against another defensively adept team, Burnley, at the weekend, in what was Wenger's final game at the Emirates, effectively the house that he helped build. They thrashed Burnley 5-0, so while many people will be glad to see the back of Arsene Wenger, hopefully they can appreciate him one last time for the squad that he's left for the next manager. One of the candidates that's rumoured to be is Juventus' Max Allegri, who took one step closer to completing a 4th straight double with the Italian champions after beating Milan in the Coppa Italia on Wednesday. Juventus is also on course to retain the league title for what will be the 7th straight year after Napoli's title challenge appears to have failed with 2 games left to go. It might seem like the perfect high for Allegri to go out on, and to one of the most attractive managerial propositions in all of world football, but apparently he wants to stay at Juventus because he feels like he has unfinished business in the Champions League. Whether his players feel the same loyalty to Juventus though will arguably be more important, and that transfer rumour mill is starting to turn. Of course, it hasn't been quiet on the Neymar front since the superstar joined PSG last summer for a record transfer fee, and more sources keep hinting that that particular Galactico's preferred destination all along has been Real Madrid. The most recent twist in the tale is a little hint from the Brazilian prodigy's social media, which has given away impending moves on more than one occasion. Neymar began following Sergio Ramos on Instagram earlier this week, and while it's not particularly notable that one professional athlete would follow another, or that a Barcelona man would follow a Madrid one, Sergio Ramos has never exactly been coy in his desire to have Neymar play on the same team as him. Late last year, Ramos told the press that the door was always open at Madrid for Neymar, and that it was always going to have been easier for Neymar to move from another club to Madrid as opposed to Barcelona. Madrid's coach Zinedine Zidane would likely also welcome Neymar to Los Blancos if he could help them win La Liga, which in a press conference earlier this week he said was harder to win than the Champions League. Right. Perhaps the whole PSG move really was just one big holiday for Neymar while his agent and Real Madrid got all their ducks in a row. Well, don't hate the player. Barcelona do hate the player though for leaving so suddenly, but they've got nothing but love for Andreas Iniesta, one of Barcelona's most iconic and defining characters of the past 2 decades. Even at 33, the Spaniard is one of few players in the current Barcelona side who hold a candle to Lionel Messi's contributions, and after breaking a club record for La Liga titles won with his Argentinian teammate, and staving off Real Madrid in an El Clasico draw that kept their unbeaten season alive, Iniesta's got everyone on tenterhooks as to where he'll be going at the end of this season. He said he's not staying in Europe, and earlier this week credible reports surfaced that he'd agreed a deal with Japanese team Vissel Kobe, which would see him earn 25 million euros a year. The Japanese club said otherwise though, and the Chinese side that Iniesta's been heavily linked with in the past also recently demurred. Australia is still pushing hard for him to join their league though, so we could yet see Iniesta taking tiki-taka down under. Barca have been creating transfer news and drama of their own though, allegedly agreeing a deal for 100 million euros with Antoine Griezmann. The speculation has been going on for months, but it's no secret that Griezmann would have left the club last summer if it hadn't been for Atletico Madrid's transfer ban. After the most recent report, and Barcelona's president and striker Luis Suarez both talking to the media about how they'd like to have Griezmann in the team, Atletico released a statement condemning Barca for a lack of respect towards a player who's under contract, and saying that, quote, enough is enough. Unfortunately for Atletico Madrid, if Barcelona can afford to pay his buyout clause and Griezmann wants to go, then that is enough. They will be hoping that he can at least provide them a Europa League trophy before he heads out though. Liverpool, however, have no need to hope for a win in the Champions League final, as they've already won it, according to a bizarre error on UEFA's website. For a few hours on Friday, somebody at UEFA embarrassingly and accidentally set what was supposed to be a private page ready to go should Liverpool win public. Still, it wasn't quite as embarrassing as Mohamed Salah's awful dive against Chelsea at the weekend. Despite being a half foot away from Gary Cahill on the edge of the Chelsea box, the Egyptian crumpled to the ground rather than chase after a ball that had gotten a little bit too far away from him, and received a yellow card for his efforts, or rather, lack thereof. Still, it was a welcome reminder that the Egyptian pharaoh is in fact mortal. Coach Jurgen Klopp will be relying on him to help Liverpool secure a top 4 finish though, and win the Champions League regardless of what the website says, but it seems he can't rely on his own assistant. It was announced Željko Buvac, Klopp's Bosnian number 2, was going to be taking some time off around the end of the season for private reasons. However, stories have since surfaced that suggest that his relationship with Klopp seriously deteriorated after Klopp learned that Buvac had been approached about the recent Arsenal opening and he hadn't told Klopp. The pair worked for years together at Borussia Dortmund before Liverpool and apparently made up this week. But if Klopp does want to still punish his assistant's secrecy, he's now got plenty of Liverpool connections north of the border should he want to impart some sort of Game of Thrones style punishment and make him train some Scottish wildlings. Yes, that's right, joining former Liverpool coach Brendan Rodgers up in Scotland is Steven Gerrard, who after having a swan song in Los Angeles and then returning to Liverpool's backroom staff for a time, has landed himself a pretty sweet first managerial role at Rangers. Rangers have been unable to touch Celtic for the past few years since Brendan Rodgers took charge, and he even took them on a 69-game unbeaten streak in 2017. It'll be awesome to see Gerrard going toe-to-toe with his former manager in Scotland, and former Rangers players are looking forward to the star power that Gerrard could potentially bring to the side. So that leaves us with one question. Who would you like to see Steven Gerrard team up with in Scotland, and why? Let us know in the comments below, along with what other kind of videos you'd like to see, and don't forget to give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any in the future. Thanks so much for watching, I'm Lloyd Mallison, and I'll see you next time.